Wayne Linder.
And I'm Neville Shender.
Where in the world have we been?
I don't know.
It's been too long. It's
been a long time coming.
It's awesome. Neville's got his rock and roll voice going.
Rock and roll. Yes,
Hey, it has been a while, but we're glad to be back, and we got
episode 4.
We had a little disagreement about the number, but here we are, episode number 4.
Yeah.
Hey, we're going to be talking about some cool stuff this week, and we got an awesome special guest.
Pamela Harris is going to be with us.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yes, I hope I can say this, but she was a tour manager with Kacey Musgraves.
Yeah, it's awesome, yeah.
And other great, well-known artists, and has been in the industry for a while, and definitely knows...
She's a total pro.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, knows her stuff. We're happy to... we'll be spending some time with her just in a little bit.
Yeah. Welcome, Pamela Harris, to the podcast. The first question I kind of wanted to ask you was, how did your career in the music industry really begin and evolve?
I was in television before I got my start in touring. And my best friend was in touring. And I met her production manager on an early morning role. They were heading out, and I met him. Mm-hmm. And for about 3 years, I bothered him when he would bring his clients to the shows that I'd be working on.
Oh, that's great.
And I would always let him know that I was available and would really be interested in touring. And he would tell me, "Hey, it's your job."
Right.
He was like, "You don't want to be on the road?" And I was like, "Yes, I do." He was able to see how I worked when he would bring his artists to the shows that I was working on. So he knew. He finally one day was like, "Hey, are you available?" He had lost his assistant and was looking for somebody new. I got that opportunity in 2000.
You know what I hear over and over again? All of us that end up in this industry in some form, we all wait for that "Are you available?" call.
Right.
Because I tried to be a driver forever, and no one would give me a chance. I couldn't get in the door anyway. And finally, one night, I had a friend that was a drummer, and their driver didn't show up, and I got the "Are you available?" call.
In this industry nowadays, it's all about networking, and I really honestly believe being at the right place at the right time and knowing the right people. It's
right.
So hard to get into this business without knowing somebody. I mean, yes, you can as like lighting and you're working for a company or
right.
sound or video. But when you're, an independent contractor like myself, not necessarily working for a company, you have to hustle.
Yeah,
you have
right.
to, get out there and meet people and meet the management and agents who might consider you and put you on a tour.
Right. And it's actually taking that opportunity and then running with it with like a strong work ethic and proving to the people that actually have faith in you that you can.
But you do have to have a good work ethic because this is a job. It's not fun and games. You're there to work first. And if you're able to get out and see the town, that's great. But I remember when I first started, I don't think I know I didn't see the front of the building.
That's awesome.
Very little did I see the city. So you have to be dedicated.
Did you ride a lot of buses in the beginning too?
Yes, I've always had bus tours, so very, very much so.
So the importance of what you see inside of a bus, since you said I see the front of the building, but I don't get to see like the Washington Monument or anything. It's like the importance.
You see the Washington Monument when you step off your bus at Constitution Hall, and it's there. But that's about as close as you can get. But yes, your bus is your home.
Right.
Your bunk is your apartment, let's say.
Well, that's a great point that we all have to remember all the time on every aspect of it. Bus is the home for 10 to 12 people at a time.
Well, and that's why the importance of a good driver so that they can actually sleep.
Agreed. I cannot agree more.
I totally agree. Yeah. You go to sleep every night putting your life in that bus driver's hands.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And if you cannot trust that bus driver, if that bus driver does not have a smooth acceleration and stopping, you will not get any rest and will wake up unhappy.
No, that's not
Well,
good.
And I'm sure you would hear that from the artist and the crew as well.
Yes, all the way around, band, artist, crew. I think it's really important for drivers to know. Bus companies don't call and ask for like a postmortem, like a breakdown on, hey, so you've been with us. What were your thoughts? What were your critiques? What could this driver do better? And I think that might help a driver. We're not bad-mouthing them or putting them down. It's just maybe there's little things that they're not aware that they're doing.
I'm actually glad you brought that up because Pioneer Coach just implemented, we moved Mike Zaratica into the Human Resources Driver Training Program we just created, which is going to help us moving into 2020. And we also created a department for QC, which is quality control on the interiors of the buses for new carpeting, laminates, etc. So we have been listening to what our clients are saying and the importance of not only the product but the personnel.
Well, personnel, I think, is very important. You have to have a driver that you can relate to and that you can approach and have conversations with, because things are changing daily sometimes, and things happen at, a split second, and so you need to have that communication and ability to, walk on the bus and be like, hey, 5 minutes, this is what we need to have happen.
Right.
That's so important.
Talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. What are some of the what are the big challenges that you deal with, Pam? Over on a daily basis that you have to overcome?
I think as a driver, cleanliness for me is a big thing.
Sure.
And I think it is on every bus because ants are easy to get, and of course the bathroom is a huge touching point with everybody, especially females, and having a clean toilet.
Yes.
Having a trash can that has a lid on it, I think, is very important because for women, we're the ones who have the most trash.
Yep.
And I just think that little things like that.
That is such a great point.
Important. If a driver is following too close, you have that, especially like rush hour traffic, and they're trying to get to the venue, but they've hit that traffic, and then it's stop and go. I think they need to be conscious of that as well, even though we're trying to get there. There still might be people sleeping. And then the little things of having enough water in the tank, making sure that if you're touring in the winter, that you have a heater on the pipe so that they don't freeze. Making sure that everything works on the bus. A driver should have a checklist, and maybe they do, maybe they don't. But the internet should be working, the microwave should be working, satellites should be working. They should make sure that they get their computer out and get online.
Right.
Yep. Absolutely.
So that we don't have to wait for a few days to get it fixed. I know internet is a big one when you get a bus and the internet's not working or they don't know the password. I think all buses should have a board or some type of note that says the bus code and the internet password. As people walk on, they can see it right there.
Man, I can't write fast enough. I'm taking all these notes. That's so.
They're great.
You
Actually,
can go
this
back
is
and
what.
listen to the podcast.
I know, that's awesome, Pam.
This is
Thank
what
you.
we needed too.
That's great.
Yeah, it's everybody looks for different things in their buses. Air moving through the bus and who's controlling the air. And for a bus driver to know even how the air flows, there's so many thermostats in a bus, and what thermostats control what side of the bus. Because, everybody likes it at different temperatures, and some people don't like air blowing on their head. They'd rather have it blowing on their feet. There's so many, different things that a bus driver has to know, but it helps if they're knowledgeable about their bus.
You know what? I just can't help but think as we're talking, everything that you're pointing out, first of all, is so valuable. But second of all, it really points back to it truly is about the basics. It's about the little things that add up. And the little things that you think that you would never forget. As far as the ease of getting on the internet, the ease of knowing passwords or how to run the systems on the bus.
And that's why, to me, it's so important to assign drivers coaches where they have it for the whole year and they know the nuances and the ins and outs of everything internal and external. How important that driver really is to the smoothness of the tour, which leads me to what are the good communicative to have from a driver? When you're on a multi-bus tour, do you prefer to just deal with one driver as the lead and then he can communicate the rest to the others? Because I know you do multi-bus tours.
So, of course, the artist bus is always going to speak with the tour manager because their travel is always going to be different.
Sure.
And possibly the band bus as well. But the crew bus, if you're in a multi-bus tour, whether it's 2 buses, 3 buses, or 15, you need to have a lead driver. And you need to have a lead driver who knows the venues, the routing, and that has good communication with the production manager so that they're always on the same page and that he can then distribute the information. Now, of course, all the drivers are going to get a day sheet. All the drivers are going to get, hopefully, all the drivers are going to get maps and directions.
Right.
Yep.
And they all should read them and not rely on one particular driver to guide them.
Bingo. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Like
that's huge. Yeah.
It is huge because if you have 12 buses, you're not all going to be going at the same time because at night when everybody's, showering, some buses are going to be later.
Right.
So
Yep.
everybody needs to read the maps and everybody needs to read the directions and not be reliant on your GPS because that's where, I'm old school and I enjoy the drivers who break out the atlases and who knows routes and who's been at the venue and can remember that, if you go down 5th Street, you're going to hit this, and so don't go down 5th Street, let's say.
Right.
But, the production manager works really hard to make sure that all drivers, not only buses, but truck drivers, have the routing and have a map and have directions
Right.
from the venue. So drivers have to really read that. And it's something that they need to read before they get to their bus,
Right.
It would be really cool if people would actually pick up the phone and call ahead and get some specifics.
Yes, even to hotels. Like,
Yeah.
a lot of times you're not going to get a map to the hotel. The person might just be, hey, so we're parking in the back of the hotel. When we get there, the valet or the bellhop will direct you.
Right.
But it's getting to the hotel
Yeah.
and making sure that they can park in front of the hotel and that there's not construction. I think that's always valuable if a bus driver can call ahead. I mean, my coordinators will call ahead, but maybe they forgot, or maybe
Right.
they missed a step of it. And if a bus driver calls ahead, even to hotels, and, even sometimes venues, I mean, usually the production manager is pretty reliable about that, but a phone call can make a world of difference.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. We may have lost that in our technology age. I don't know.
No, I think so, and I like drivers going like almost 3-4 days in advance, so that they're knowing, or even longer if they have, touching base. So if you're going to a hotel, the Hyatt or the Conrad Hilton or something tomorrow, you should have probably called them yesterday,
Agreed.
just to
Right.
give them a heads
Right.
up.
I think what we've lost is everybody's so reliant on the internet and a Google Map.
Man,
And
that's a
there has
good
to be
word.
that communication. For a production manager with his bus driver, the lead bus driver, there always has to be a conversation before you leave that night.
Yeah.
You have to be like, okay, did you get the map? Yes, great. Do you have any questions? No. Okay, great. Do you have to get fuel? What time will we be arriving, do you think? There has to be a conversation because, if the bus driver has to get fuel and he has to fill the tank and, different things like that. Like somebody, it's just good to know what their process is going to be that night.
Yeah, the commonality here is good, concise communication.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Pam, I know we said it at the beginning, but I just want to say again, thank you so much for your time. This information is just invaluable to us. But hey,
I'm glad. Thank you.
I want to ask you another. What are some of the things that we could do better as a company to support you?
I think just being at the phone call for when we have an issue.
Yeah, absolutely.
You never, if you don't work with the company a lot and you don't know their drivers, you might get a driver that isn't fitting in.
Sure.
And I think having that relationship and being able to pick up the phone and be like, hey, so this isn't working out. We're going to need to make some changes. And on your end, there has to be a system to where you have to approach the driver first before you go looking somewhere else so that nobody's being blindsided.
Sure.
Right.
Because when we call and have to make that change, it's a difficult decision because you're taking somebody out of their job. And you're hoping that you as a company can put them back on something else. But I think you as a company, when somebody calls, it has to be like, okay, so let's first find somebody on, and kind of be like, hey, we might have a possible situation.
Right.
And then talk to that driver and be like, hey, this isn't working out. Because the changeover depending on the driver's reaction, either needs to be quickly or, if you can't get another driver out there for a few days, has to be where that driver is still going to be willing to drive
Sure.
and do the best of his job. But I know as a company, you guys being able to pick up the phone and handle our problems in a fast and efficient manner is key. If there's a problem with a bus, us being able to call you and say, hey, the bus is having this issue, we need to get it handled right away.
Sure.
Right.
You as a company making sure buses are thoroughly taken care of before they come out on the road.
Right.
Making sure that they're up to par and compliant. I know things happen on the road, but, making sure that you as a company as well has the checklist where the internet's working.
Right.
The heaters are working. The satellite TVs are working.
Right.
Is important for, the driver.
Mm-hmm.
So that he just doesn't have to go back to the shop and be like, hey, guys, you forgot this.
Right.
No, absolutely. All those things are hugely important. And the more detailed the information is that we get from the tour, the more accurate we can be in getting things repaired. and
Right.
done.
Well, and I
Right.
think on repairs and breakdowns on the road, it's about communicating, okay, how long is the repair? What do we
Right.
need? Will the mechanic show up at the venue, or is this
Right.
something where the bus has to leave, or that kind of communication is paramount for Pam and tour managers and production managers.
And all these
Right.
topics are very tough. These are tough things to deal with.
They happen.
But the communication is I think is what's key. Keeping everybody in the
Right.
loop. Yeah.
And even, talking to your driver about, okay, this is the process, and even sending an email and saying, we spoke with the driver, this is what we need to do, this is the length that it's going to happen, or A, B, and C, makes us aware that you're attentive of what the situation may be,
Right.
And as a company, listening to what they need as a bus, I know you guys were very, you listened to me when I said, look, we're a working bus, we have 12 people on the bus, but we have the tour manager and the production manager, and we need to work at night. And
Right.
a merch girl who, needs to settle her stuff, and you saying, hey, we have a bus that has a desk in the back.
Right.
And it will be available for you. That was key. That was great for us.
I'm so glad that worked out.
Yeah, customer service, listening.
And I think as a company too, your drivers and seeing what might fit a driver to a tour, knowing
Yes.
your drivers and knowing who you've worked with in the past and what they look for is important. And supporting your drivers and making sure that they go out and be as best as they can be.
Sure.
And so that they have the support with you guys.
Yeah, they're the front line. That's for sure.
After safety, it's all about customer service.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's looking after the tour, and I've told drivers, if you're in any kind of situation, ask yourself the question, what can I do that best serves the tour?
Yeah.
And if you answer those questions, you're probably always going to be making the right decision.
And like Pam said, it's tough being out there on the road in a different city every night, and it's not glamorous, and it's not.
It can be.
Yeah.
It can, yeah, exactly. It can be, but it's not as glamorous as everybody may think it is.
Well, that's true.
So-
But the photos look great.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's perfect. That's awesome.
it isn't easy.
Yeah.
And you're not going home, but you're going to your bus, which is your home.
Right.
Yes.
And if you have especially with like breakdowns, if you have a driver who knows what to do in that situation and isn't flustered, and doesn't always have to ride with another bus because you're afraid the driver's not going to be able to handle any situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have classes on covering the basics. If you overheat or if your radiator cap comes off, do you have a supply of water that's not just bottles, things like that. I don't know if you guys go through things like that, but I know for probably newer bus drivers that would be helpful because I can only imagine as a bus driver getting out of bus and going, yikes.
Yeah, there's a lot of systems on there. Absolutely. And we do our best to educate drivers, and we're getting better at that. We're implementing a complete department now that's going to be nothing but that kind of information. Yeah, that's a great point. That's huge.
I think it's huge for people who are just starting out and they might get the newer bus drivers, because of course seasoned people want the bus drivers that they've had before.
Right.
So, and you don't always have older seasoned bus drivers. You get new ones.
Sure.
And I think supporting them on the basics of a bus is important, and making sure they have the tools. Like, do you have a hose so that you can fill up the tank?
Right.
Do you have tools that, because not every wrench is going to work.
Right.
Yeah, that's exactly
True.
right. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, they need the basics for sure.
Yeah, do you have the numbers of if you have a flat tire, who you're going to call
Right.
to get a tow truck out there to help change the tire? Because not everybody has those.
Knowledge or wherewithal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't want to have to be worried about it as a tour manager. I want to be able to go to a lead driver and know that they have it all covered. And so if something happens and I need to be waking up, or I know, because, as you're traveling on the bus and the bus does something or you hear beeps, you know what's going on.
Right.
So when you pull over, you're going to get up. And you want to be able to go to the bus driver and be like, hey, what's going on? And then say, oh, the radiator cap popped off. We have to let it cool down. So they're going to refill it with water and get heading back out. Or we have a flat tire. I've already called. So it'll take 45 minutes, and then we should be going.
Back
so
to communication.
Yep, absolutely.
It's that kind of stuff that makes, as a production manager and a tour manager, feel, I think, more comfortable with who you have out there. And belief in the company, the coach company that you hired as well.
Right.
Yeah,
and I just want to add something because, it is about communication, but it's also knowledgeable communication and not being a person of panic.
Yeah.
Because if you got someone that's panicking and then they're passing that information on to Pam in a panicked manner, then obviously it's going to...
It grows exponentially.
Yeah.
One thing that I love about what we do is in 24/7, there's two lines of communications available to our driver, and we have the shop communication and we have the leasing side communication, and we have two phones. And whether you guys know this or not, but when a phone call comes in that anything happens during the night, our team from the shop always alerts whoever's on call with leasing as well, and we're all kind of working in parallel to come up with an answer, because every time I think that we've come up on every situation possible, something else pops up.
Yeah.
But this is all just great information, Pam.
Oh, thank you.
This is good
It
stuff.
has that it's fresh.
That's awesome. Well, what would you say? Do you have? I mean, we're about to wrap it up here, but do you have anything that you would like just the world to know as far as like buses and drivers go? Any advice or a
She
comment?
gave a lot.
Oh, let me rephrase that. What's your final bit of knowledge?
Wrap it up.
I just think that communication is key, not only with the company but the bus driver, and to have a lead bus driver that you trust and that you can go to with anything.
Yes.
And as a company to hire bus drivers who take pride in their work.
Right.
That's
And,
great.
I think that's important because you can tell as somebody who's been in the business for a while, you can tell if a bus driver takes pride in their work and if they're knowledgeable. And
You can read through it, huh? That's awesome.
And I think that's just, having a bus company, coach company that you enjoy working with and who's there for you and who's proven themselves to be
Reliable.
the one.
Yeah.
And then knowing that they know, that their drivers are also high quality, knowledgeable, and how that communication is high in my book.
Yep, and I agree. That's good.
I concur.
Because the less stress I have from the bus drivers, the easier it is for me to do my other jobs that I have.
Yeah,
Right.
we would hope that we provide a situation where you don't even have to think about the driver or
Right.
the bus. Goodness
Correct.
gracious.
And the logistics of it. So
Yeah.
she can just look after the artist, and the production manager can look after the production of the show,
Man,
and the circus rolls on.
exactly. I tell you what, Neville and I have never been this quiet. We've just been soaking it in.
It's like,
We're typically you can't shut us up, but
Yeah.
this is so good.
Mutt
So
and Jeff are in the corner.
I
listening.
know we're just making notes here. So
Women in touring, it's such a important conversation. And when you brought up about the bus and the lid on the toilet and all these things, it's almost like I wanted to expound on that a little bit, because there are women riggers. There's
every position.
yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
Yeah. More and more women are getting into more crewing roles, along with PM and TM roles. But yeah,
So expound on that a little bit.
I think it's great that more women are getting into these other roles. I hate to say that it's about time, but, I think it's about time. And it's difficult as a female out on the road because it is such a male-dominated world.
Sure.
Even now, you have to start thinking things differently. A lock on the back door of the back lounge so that you can change back there.
Right.
It is key.
Yeah.
For women who are touring.
Absolutely.
With male and females on a bus. The lid on the trash can is nice for a female. Of course, as women compete in a men's world like all the time, but to have those little things, so that that you're kind of safe.
Sure.
In those situations, to have the lock on the back door and to be able to change. And it's so difficult because you don't want them to be like, see, this is why women can't tour. The tissue, having a box of tissue,
Right.
Yeah.
And the cleanliness, it's just like the little things. Like, for men, if it's your sister, like that's how men have to start thinking, like, I'm touring with my sister.
Oh,
Right.
that's great.
And, and then not also expect, though, that we're doing the domestic things.
Right.
Like men can't think that we're always going to clean up after them and that they can leave the bus and that.
Right.
It's changed, definitely. I mean, I remember when I first started touring, it was like there were no boundaries, and
Right.
bus drivers would just say anything, and you were kind of taken aback, like, okay, that's awkward. But, it's all about respect.
Gosh.
Like, you've got to respect the females that are out there, and they're not, sweetie, they're not your honey, they're not your babe. They have a name, and I appreciate the bus drivers who are like, oh, nice to meet you, and call me by, do you prefer Pam or Pamela? And that's how I start out a good rapport with them. And I think, they at least care about my name.
That's a great first step.
It's
That is.
things like that.
There's never been, in my opinion, a question of capability, but it is. More and more we're seeing more and more females, sharing the same bunk area,
Right.
as male counterparts.
It's about respect, and a woman, can do the job. Otherwise, she wouldn't be there. And
Right.
like on the last tour I was on, we had girls who were new and had never toured before, and then that's when you have to give them the whole do's and don'ts. Make sure you lock the door. Just because you lock the door doesn't mean the babe might be locked.
Right.
No number 2.
Yep.
Put your laminate on the seat. I remember one bus driver, as we were like starting to get rolling, he had was like, is everybody, are we a bus? And for the bus driver to go to one person and say, are we a bus? It's key. But after that, he said, are there any new people on the bus? And do we need to have the discussion of the do's and don'ts on the bus?
Yeah.
And I thought that was great because he wasn't assuming that we were all veterans. He wanted to make sure that he communicated that, if you get off the bus and I'm at a truck stop, I might not see you, so leave your laminate on the seat.
I'm hoping that's one of my guys.
That's awesome. That's fantastic.
I'm not quite sure, but it just really kind of stuck with me because I was like, wow, that's really great that he's concerned that and not assuming.
That's great.
And wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page.
Love
And
it.
especially for females, if you go out into a truck stop, I always try to let the bus driver know. I usually ask him, are you going to be stopping at a truck stop? Or just in case. But if you do, a female at a truck stop can be, by herself at 3 in the morning can be a little unnerving.
Yes.
Sure.
And I always tell them, make sure you take your phone and be careful when you go in and make sure you leave your laminate. To have a bus driver who you can make aware as well, like, hey, I'm going out.
Yeah.
And I'm going to inside. I think it's key as well. And for the bus driver to be like, hey, if you ladies ever go to a truck stop, for everybody to have your phone number too.
Yeah.
Like, there's been so many times where people are like, do you have the bus driver's phone number? And I'm like, we've been on this bus for a month. You don't have a phone number yet?
Which could be important at a truck stop if you get grease spotted.
Well,
Exactly.
yes. Well, and even, when bus drivers drop you off at the hotel,
Right.
I mean, especially if you're on a long drive and you're just waking up and, you have to get off the bus, not everybody's as coherent as everybody else, and things are left. So, for them to get in touch with the bus driver, is important. But as a female, safety and not feeling like that it's awkward, that there's going to be some respect out there. Definitely the lock on the back door, a trash can with a lid, cleanliness, and just knowing that you're not going to have to mother everybody and clean up everything. put some Febreze on a bus because, you know, boys can get stinky.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
free breeze.
That's
you said?
good. That's perfect.
Free breeze.
That's perfect.
I like smell pretties. I mean,
Yeah.
nothing wrong.
I
with
love a
smell.
bus that smells good. Like some bus drivers do something like a blue side thing on the toilet that makes the toilet smell
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Yep, like Fabuloso or something like that.
I love it when my bathroom smells good. I mean, I
Yes.
hate it, of course, when it stinks, but
Yeah.
a bus driver who takes that little extra effort, you know, who maybe sets up a candle if the bus is sitting still, who knows that there's somebody with stinky feet and they, you know, break
yeah.
out the Febreze.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. Yep.
I was the only female on a bus when I was a coordinator. I was the only female on a bus, and luckily I toured with a bunch of guys who were very respectful and who looked out for me. So I was very lucky. I've
Right.
heard horrible stories about, you know, buses where girls are not as respectful, and I'm grateful for the experiences that I've had. Bus drivers I've had on both aspects. So it's nice to be able to have a bus driver that you can relate to and who will take into account that there are more females on the bus than
Right.
males.
I tell you what, we are definitely going to be modifying this section of the driver program. We got to make this the best.
We are going to make it the
That's just great. Yeah.
100%.
For
So
sure.
send all your work our way, Pam, and we will deliver.
I'm sure you will.
That's awesome.
That's great.
Awesome. All right. Well, again, thank you so much, Pam.
All right. Thanks for listening. That was awesome.
Yeah, it was fantastic to get that information. You guys send us your feedback. We love hearing from you, and we want to keep making this more informative and better. And special thanks. Thank you, Pamela Harris. Yeah.
Yes, thanks, Pamela Harris. Little golden nuggets in there for all of us to grab onto as entertainer coach drivers and companies. Stay tuned. Send us your feedback, questions, things you'd like to see in future podcasts. And this basically concludes podcast number 4.
Right
Stay
on.
tuned for 5.
See you next time.
Cheers.
This has been a Pioneer Coach Presents Rock, Roll, Relax, a podcast.